What's up, newsers? It's the Russian dude. Welcome to the new normal Putin's Russia edition, where mobile signals vanish, airports shut down for days, and your ATM might decide to stop working mid-transaction, literally. But don't worry, comrade, it's all in the name of safety. Recently, Central Russia entered blackout mode once again. Airports grounded, flights sent back to where they came from, and thousands of confused passengers stranded like extras in a Soviet remake of Terminal movie. Officially, it's because of potential drone strikes, but unofficially, well, welcome to a country at war that's still too afraid to even say it out loud. While the Kremlin continues to pump delusions into state media like it's a gas line to Europe, the daily consequences of this silent, undeclared war are starting to spill into the lives of ordinary Russians. And surprise, they don't have a VPN to escape this reality. So today, let's talk about why Grandma's bank card doesn't work anymore, why a drone strike in Izhevsk might cancel your flight from Moscow, and why the very system trying to preserve Russia's normalcy is crumbling under the weight of its own lies. Let's start with the greatest paradox of all. Russia is not officially at war. It is a special military operation, but is being treated like a war zone from above and below. Air traffic halted, mobile internet shut down, GPS, or better say GLONASS, jumped, satellite comms down, and this is not a once-in-a-decade scenario. That's not me reciting the events during Cold War. This is the routine part of a present, everyday life in vast stretches of central Russia. And we're not talking about some abandoned plains in Buryatia. No, we are talking about major cities, economic hubs, the places that were once supposed to be untouchable. The reality is so twisted that while the government denies any direct conflict affecting the homeland, its people are living the exact opposite. And nobody dares to point out the contradiction. The question is, why? Because doing so would mean calling the special military operation exactly what it is. A disaster that's bleeding back into Russia's core. And that, as you all guys know, is the criminal offense in Russia called discrediting the Russian military. 8 years in jail in most cases. Foreign agent badge, and your entire future ruined. No wonder regular people just prefer to live with such inconveniences and say, "Ah, that's okay, I can live without internet for a day or two," they say. Which is not the right mindset and not how you fight the regime back, but well, at least it's understandable where all this comes from for the majority of the Russian population. But anyways, in the early days of this bloody campaign, Russian officials promised citizens that everything would remain untouched. Life goes as usual, they said. We're just liberating our historic lands, then they said. Meanwhile, the skies over Moscow, the capital, look more like a no-fly zone than the capital of a so-called stable nation. But here is the truly absurd part. People are getting used to it. As they wait 5 hours for their flight to be cleared, and then they act just like it's some kind of bad weather, even though it's sunny outside. They restart their phones 20 times a day and call it a glitch. And this apathy is not accidental. It's a feature of a state that's conditioned its people to expect nothing, question nothing, and endure everything. But eventually, even the best propaganda begins to crack under the weight of delayed flights, inaccessible internet, and drone shrapnel. One of the most recent attacks in Izhevsk does not just disappear because it is far away, and who even lives in Izhevsk, right? No offense, Izhevsk people, if you're watching. It turns the entire country's airspace into a nervous guessing game. Every time a drone flies by, it's not a question of if something will get hit, but what. Yet Putin still thinks this is not a war. Hats off to him, I guess then. And how is it possible that this narrative survived even then for so long? Let's try to answer this question in our next chapter. Now let's ask a very uncomfortable question. If everything is falling apart, who is actually keeping this house of cards standing? The answer might surprise you. It's not the military, not the FSB, not even the guys who scream about Satanists, Nazis and LGBTQ terrorists from the luxury offices in Moscow. No. The people patching up this sinking ship are Russia's civilian bureaucrats. The ones sitting in windowless rooms with their 1,000 rows Excel spreadsheets and not enough medicine to cope with the consequences of their actions. These are the same regional officials who were quietly handed the task of replenishing Russia's army without triggering mass riots. They are the ones who designed those infamous volunteer contracts with the $40,000 sign-up bonuses, sold us golden tickets to a better life, or at least a very well-paid funeral if you even get the money. It's not the Ministry of Defense holding the line, it's governors, mayors, local administrators trying to plug every social and economic hole with duct tape and a glass of vodka while doing things simultaneously. Because if they fail, the alternative is not just public outcry, it's collapse. That's precisely the vertical of power Putin constructed. The problem is that if it is so fragile, if only one big chain gets out of the equation and not replaced timely, the whole structure might collapse much quicker than anyone ever anticipated. And then next topic, well, like what is even happening on the economic front then? Forget about military innovation or battlefield heroics. Russia's economic survival hinges on a pirate network of middlemen, fake invoices, shadow fleets, and grey market routes that get iPhones to Moscow faster than they reach Berlin. The irony writes itself. The war effort, which was supposed to strengthen Russia's greatness, now survives only because the very people who wanted nothing to do with it are desperately working to keep the country from imploding. But here's the kicker. These people cannot do anything about the military consequences. They can import semiconductors and baby formula. They can bypass sanctions and build ghost companies in Kazakhstan. But they cannot stop a drone from flying into Kazan. They cannot fix a jammed radar. They cannot intercept enemy's communications. Because that's the military's job. And unfortunately, at least for Russia, that part of the system is too busy looking for Western propaganda in music lyrics and raiding Telegram channels for unruly teenagers, other than to obviously care about defending the country. Well, good for Ukraine, I guess. Even good for Russian people if you think about it. Because this eventually might end up being that miracle they are all so desperately waiting for. In the meantime, the regime tries to maintain the order of things as if they are living in peaceful times, while in reality they are going through the biggest war since the Second World War. What happens if you mix those things? Nothing good, spoiler alert. Let's talk about it in our next chapter. Let's get brutally honest now. War and modern infrastructure, they do not mix. You cannot run a functioning tech economy when your airspace is flooded with drones and your GPS is being jammed every time there is an alert. Try running a bank, a delivery app or even a food truck when your location signals disappears or changes every 10 minutes. Imagine ordering a food delivery to your address in Moscow, and then the courier calls you and asks why you're not opening a door in St. Petersburg. That's not even exaggeration, that's real stories that some people go through while doing absolutely normal daily things. With the only caveat is that they're living inside Russia. The Russian government pretends that you can just patch this kind of chaos. Install a new jammer, ground a few more flights, turn off the internet in one city while redirecting traffic through another. But this is not a video game. It's reality, and reality does not care about patriotic slogans or rosy economic forecasts. They now live in a country where one false radar blip can hold hundreds of flights, where your phone might stop working because it's within range of possible sabotage, where the very same system that brags about resilience and technological independence cannot guarantee a safe commute from Moscow to Ufa. And this is not an accident, it's the logical outcome of fighting a 21st century war with 20th century brains and approach. What's the scariest part? This is not a temporary glitch, it's the new baseline. Commercial aviation, mobile networks, financial services are all now hostage to a war being conducted by people who cannot even keep a building from catching fire without blaming NATO pigeons. And the people who do understand infrastructure, well, they've been shoved into a corner, told to make it work by all means possible, while also at the same time being simultaneously sabotaged by their own government or forced to leave the country entirely. The Ministry of Defense breaks things, Roskomnadzor covers it up, and the guy fixing the servers in Yekaterinburg just wants to get home without being drafted or called a foreign agent. That is the circle of life in Putin's Russia. So, What do the actual security services, like, the people paid to protect the country, what do they spend time doing? Surely with drones slamming into oil depots and generals getting blown up every other week, they are laser focused on terrorism, counter-terrorism and battlefield logistics, I don't know, right? Apparently wrong. They're too busy chasing phantoms. Instead of disarming sabotage units, they're prosecuting imaginary LGBTQ conspiracies. Instead of preventing real attacks, they're inventing Satanist organizations operating out of Berlin and jailing activists in absentia. It's like watching clowns juggle chainsaws while the tent is on fire and there is no even audience left. Here is the ugly truth. Russia is not just losing the war abroad, it's actively sabotaging its ability to function at home. The FSB is not fighting terrorists, it's fabricating threats to justify its bloated budget. The Ministry of Defense is not winning battles, it's losing generals and pretending it didn't even happen. Some generals even suspiciously retire a couple of days right before their ultimate demise. What a coincidence, right? The people who should be securing the country are instead writing laws against foreign agents. Then they also shake down construction workers and organizing elaborate sting operations against people who liked the wrong post on Vkontakte or prohibited Instagram. Meanwhile, the actual saboteurs are driving trucks full of drones through populated areas without being even stopped by the road police. Oil refineries go boom, railroads catch fire. In response, just ban another website, arrest another gay blogger, pass a law outlawing rainbows. It would be hilarious if it was not getting people killed. But you know what's even more tragic? The part of the government that is trying to hold the country together, the civilian infrastructure, the logistics planners, the economic advisors, they're the ones who will carry the blame when the mess implodes, inevitably implodes. Because what about the real culprits? They'll just vanish into gated dutches and diplomatic community before even the first trial begins. The entire state apparatus works in this way, all the way since Soviet times and even before. If something bad happens, don't go looking for a solution, just look for someone to blame, then fire this person and publicly prosecute. The problem is, one day bad things accumulate and innocent people in jails will not be there to help you solve these problems. So who's left? Yes man apparatchik who made his career agreeing to everything that his leadership says him. Well, just give him a try, I guess, and see what happens. Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. On Monday we have another guest for our Thank God It's Monday podcast. Once again, another reason for you guys to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to support my work, the links down below. For example, my Patreon, where you'll be able to see the podcast in way early access. Once again, thanks so much for watching. See you on Monday.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe